Back to Shepard Smith in New York. You see a scene of damage there now.
Yeah, indeed, Rick, Britt, and those pictures were just coming to us from Abu Dhabi television. The truth is we don't know exactly the spot in which those pictures were being taken and whether those were live pictures, but we are working the phones to find out the details. I can report this: a huge plume of smoke seen on the west bank of the Tigris River in central Baghdad.
Extensively, but it is not a surprise to anyone here that the area where these explosions have been reported to possibly be taking place in the so-called presidential palace areas of Baghdad, that we are getting our first reports from there. There were many indications, and no surprise to anybody, that this would be some of the first targets the U.S. military would attack in downtown Baghdad. Indeed, Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld said just a little while ago in this briefing room, as well as General Richard Myers, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, that the Iraqi leadership was now considered a legitimate target for this campaign. So probably not a big surprise that we're seeing some of these presidential compounds being attacked. Wolf?
And Barbara, as you well know, a lot of these buildings, these military and other senior buildings in downtown Baghdad have these huge underground complexes that the U.S. intelligence community has often described in great detail. The kinds of bombs that would presumably be dropped would be able to penetrate deep underground. Talk to our viewers a little bit about what you suspect might be the nature of those bombs that would be designed to go underneath the buildings and destroy some of those underground bunker facilities.
Well, you know, Wolf, the military does have some deep penetrating weapons, as they call them, but the intelligence community since late last year had been looking very closely at detailed architectural drawings that they thought represented how these bunkers were made. There'd been a number of West European and former East European firms in and out of Baghdad for many years in previous years working on these underground bunker facilities. The U.S. intelligence community had looked at them and tried to determine what kinds of weapons they could put on these targets that would make them collapse. It's been a big challenge to the U.S. military over the years. It is believed in many quarters that Saddam has simply dug deeper and made these facilities harder and more robust than the U.S. weapons can readily penetrate. It is our understanding that the initial strike on Baghdad last night, for example, included 2,000-pound bombs from F-117 fighters and, of course, about 3 dozen Tomahawk missiles, which have either a 1,000, 2,000-pound warhead. By all accounts, if they really want to destroy some of these underground bunkers, they are going to have to put an awful lot of ordnance on target. There's a lot of experimental programs. Of course, remember, we saw that big weapon test in Florida just several days ago. It is not known whether any of those weapons are really ready to use in this campaign. Wolf.
That was the Moab, M-O-A-B, what was nicknamed the mother of all bombs, not yet ready, though, for action by all accounts, even though it was tested at the Eglin Air Force Base. Barbara, I want to just finally wrap up with you the second point that you made. You reported that elements of the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force in northern Kuwait, now having crossed the border into southern Iraq, moving on targets there, a very significant development. But you're also getting conflicting information. Let me just repeat this from Pentagon sources, whether these huge explosions we're seeing, and we can look at these fires that are now underway. You're looking in the middle of your screen at this picture of this building clearly on fire, destroyed by this U.S. bomb. You're getting conflicting information whether this is the actual start of the massive bombardment campaign that has been so widely advertised, or maybe it's just another little preliminary activity.
Absolutely, Wolf. I must tell you, with the entire world watching as we speak, waiting for a signal that the war has begun, the massive air and ground bombardment that the Pentagon has promised, it's very difficult to get clear information right now from military officials. Many military officials we have spoken to in as little as the last 10 minutes are also directly expressing confusion. They say they are not certain exactly what is going on at this hour. It is being run out of the theater at the U.S. Central Command headquarters of General Tommy Franks. And the Pentagon has been saying since we got here this morning, one of their major goals, officials telling us, is to preserve tactical surprise, to put out a lot of potentially not clear information, not to signal exactly what is going on so they can preserve tactical surprise for those U.S. ground troops crossing into Iraq, for U.S. pilots flying over Baghdad, for the troops that are at serious risk at the moment. So right now, it is very difficult to tell you one way or the other whether or not the war has begun.
Sky hasn't hit anything.
Gotcha. Britt Hume in Washington. Britt?
Shep, on the question of that report that we got from Brett Baer about the senior Republican Guard commanders interested in defecting or giving up, it's worth thinking about the Republican Guard as a unit. That is, of course, the elite fighting force, such as it is, that the Iraqi military has, and it is in really two parts of it. One is the main element of the Republican Guard, and the other is the Special Republican Guard, which is Saddam Hussein's personal bodyguards. And they are often thought of as those personal bodyguards are thought of as a very, very elite force indeed. But in fact, according to people who know the structure of that Iraqi military, they are really more like bodyguards. They are people who exercise discipline over the rest of the forces. Their job is to protect this man. They are not the kind of fighting force that you normally associate with the Republican Guard. And if they are the main elements of the defense of Baghdad, when our forces get there, they will not be up against the kind of disciplined fighting force that they would encounter with the rest of the Republican Guard, who are, at this point, we gather to some extent stationed elsewhere around the country.
Indeed.
While we watch these rather dramatic pictures.
As a matter of fact, we've been able to get a little bit more information about what it is that we're watching now. Just for a quick second here, this is from that missile strike, I am told, which happened a short time ago. This picture is a live picture, and what you see in the background there is a building which is to some degree on fire. We've also been watching on this is from Abu Dhabi television. Abu Dhabi, excuse me, television, and these are pictures inside that building. It's our understanding, Britt, that this is very close to the Ministry of Information there. Not to say that that's what's been hit, but this is in the center of Baghdad, on the south and eastern part of Center City in Baghdad.
Well, the Ministry of Information has been used, of course, that's where they make all the media work. When you're normally, if you get a visa and get in there and get to work, you have to work out of the Ministry of Information. Every foreign bureau, every foreign operation basically does have to do that. And the Iraqis have put all kinds of goodies in that building, and it has been made clear to foreign journalists for some time now that that would not be a safe place to be when this air campaign began. So not surprising, perhaps, that those pictures that we're getting from another news agency indicates that bombs are hitting near or on that building itself, and let us hope and trust that none of our colleagues is there.
Well, I can tell you this. David Chater was reporting from that very position yesterday, and he was told by both locals and with some sort of contact from the Allies, as he put it, that in fact that was not a good place to be anymore. And he moved to a building which is described as about 4 to 5 kilometers away, but still able to see it from his position. And he was reporting on Sky News just a short time ago how glad he was that he took their advice.
I can certainly imagine he was. Shep, I'm joined here in the studio by retired Air Force Lieutenant General Thomas McInerney, who has been a real stalwart for us as a military analyst. And I just wanted to ask you, General, we're now told authoritatively from the Pentagon that this enormous air campaign that we've been anticipating has yet to begin. The pictures we've seen and even the sound that has accompanied them have made this seem pretty dramatic at times. What will it be like when it comes?
Well, as you heard, they said you'll know it. This is pretty intense, but they're going to really double, triple the amount of air that they put in there. And that's going to have a collapsing effect, we believe, on the military.
So when we look at pictures like this, when that is underway, what will we see? Will the explosions be more than what's it going to look like?
I think you're going to see intense explosions going all over the place. 10 bombs a minute. It's one every 10 seconds, continuously for upwards of an hour, and it'll just continuously go on throughout the whole country. And it's focused at what? Leadership, palaces, weapons of mass destruction, those Republican Guard units that want to fight. Those are the centers of gravity. You see the lights are still on. We want every Iraqi citizen to know that we are not going to turn the lights off on him. We're going to turn the lights off on Saddam.
So even if his lights go out, we're not destroying every way they have to make electricity.
That's correct.
All right, now, talk to me a little bit about how you, as a military analyst, would assess some of the news that we've heard. Pentagon saying that yes, they do believe that 3 or 4 oil wells are on fire. I don't know what this is that compared to what we feared. Is that something to be relieved about, or is that a matter of grave concern? What?
I think it's a matter of concern. It's not grave concern. I think that the ground troops are probably in Basra by now. I think they're close to the oil fields. They're moving very fast, and that's extremely important for
Basra,
us.
of course, being the southern port city right down near Kuwait.
Yes.
And it's really the only port city of any consequence that Iraq has.
That's correct. And the 1st Marine Amphibious Force, the 1st MEF, and the 1st British Armored Division is down operating in that area. And I think that that's the area that they're going to work in, and they'll do it very quickly. So you're seeing throughout the whole country, Britt, things happening. We're going after their centers of gravity, which is primarily their military and their leadership and the weapons of mass destruction. And we're doing it simultaneously now. But we haven't given them the number 4 batter yet, the real knockout punch. And that's coming. I believe that we'll see that will come, you know, in this first night to convince, which means the IO campaign is kicking in, which means the information operations, a psychological campaign, which we're trying to separate the Republican Guard leadership from Saddam, which means we are trying to create a wedge with the attacks last night and now with this to convince them to capitulate. And there are signs, there's a lot of things going on underneath the radar screen that you and I don't see and people don't see, but there's contact with those people.
All right, General McInerney, very interesting. Now, just looking again at these pictures, they are made more dramatic, are they not, by the night vision lenses?
Yes, they are, but it is significant that the lights are still on, isn't it?
Yes.
You remember in Desert Storm 91, those lights went out and they were out.
Yeah, what the lights that we saw were really the lights from explosions and tracer fire.
That's correct. So the leadership is clearly sending that signal. The President of the United States is saying, we're not turning your power off. We want you to be part of this liberation.
Now, will there come a time when the power does go off? I can't. I mean, given the size of this bombardment, I mean, wouldn't it be militarily useful to have the power down for the purposes of command and control, communications, all that sort of thing?
That's a big debate that's gone on in the Pentagon. If it was my turn, I'd say leave the lights on. It's not going to change this war outcome one day or a half a day.
Really? Why not?
Because we have such overwhelming force at their centers of gravity. And because it is a liberation, I think it is worth the effort to let the Iraqi people know that we're on their side. And any advantage we'd get from a military point of view, I think it's not worth having the people on our side.
Now, it's 20 minutes to 10
right.
in Baghdad right now. We're told this is not the big hit. At this point, it's plenty dark. It isn't going to get any darker, is it, in Baghdad? I mean,
it's full moon, so it's not going to get any darker.
So it's not going to make any. I mean, so is there any reason why, if we're going to do this tonight, we wouldn't already be doing it that you can think of?
Yes, I think there's certain things, certain timing. If you've seen the way this has come in, it's letting people think, giving them time to say, look, now's the time to get away from Saddam. He's not doing us any good. It's making them think. It's creating problems. As I said, there are a lot of things going on that we're not seeing right now that I think that signals are being passed. And so they're doing it in a very measured way. It's kind of like the symphony, and the leader is bringing certain players in at certain times. And it's been a very measured campaign.
Yeah, we were never given to believe this would be a phased campaign at all, were we? We sort of thought it was going to be all at once, massive assault, air, land, and sea, and everything at once.
Desert Storm in 91, there were 4 phases. The strategic campaign, and then there was the air superiority to take down the SAMs and the MiGs.
Right.
You haven't heard any MiGs up yet.
Right. Well, your military colleague, General Burton Moore, is with us, and he joins us now from the set that we use for military briefings right now. General Moore, give us your sense of what's happening and your thoughts on how this may be going based on the news that we've heard so far.
Good afternoon, Britt, Tom. I agree with the assessment that you all have put forward so far. In fact, when the